Most players assume that a massive open-world map is simply about having more land area to drive through. We have been conditioned to believe that a bigger map means more empty space, longer travel times, and a higher quantity of static digital assets. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of modern game design. In reality, a larger map is a rendering nightmare that forces developers to hide the most complex systems right under your feet, away from the camera's direct line of sight. Rockstar is not just building a bigger playground. They are building a subterranean layer of technical systems designed to manage memory budget and rendering pipelines. If you look closely at how assets stream into the game engine, you will realize that the map is constantly hiding its own rendering tricks. But we will see in a moment why a hidden water table system is actually the most critical factor in how your car handles on wet asphalt. To understand this, we must first look at the concept of dynamic water tables and subsurface hydrology. In previous games, water was simply a flat plane that sat at a specific coordinate level across the entire map. In this new engine, water is treated as an active subterranean grid. This is a technical system that calculates how much moisture is retained in the soil beneath the surface. Think of it like a giant sponge hidden beneath a concrete sidewalk. When it rains, the game does not just turn on a shiny surface shader. It actually saturates this subterranean grid, which then dictates how long puddles remain in specific low-lying areas of the map. For the player, this means that driving through a dip in the road 3 hours after a storm will still result in hydroplaning because the underground grid is still calculating drainage. It changes your physical relationship with the terrain, turning every minor road depression into a genuine gameplay hazard. This level of detail requires an incredibly smart way of handling interior spaces, which brings us to interior to exterior portal rendering. In the past, entering a building required a loading screen or a highly obvious transition zone that slowed down your movement. The game engine now uses an invisible system of portal occluders. Think of this like a theatrical stage where the stagehands are frantically building the set exactly 3 feet ahead of where your eyes are looking, while tearing down the set behind you. The engine draws an invisible box around every door and window. The game only renders the high-detail furniture and physics objects inside a room when your character's field of view intersects with that specific portal box. But we will see in a moment how this portal system actually prevents the game from crashing when you are flying a jet at 500 miles per hour. For you on the controller, this means you can sprint from a chaotic 60-car police chase directly into a highly detailed convenience store with absolutely zero hitching or frame drops, because the engine only loads the interior assets at the absolute last millisecond. To keep all these moving parts organized, the map relies on what technical designers call low-frequency electromagnetic AI pathing nodes. In typical open-world games, non-playable characters simply walk along predetermined lines drawn on the sidewalk. In this world, the pathfinding grid is dynamic and highly responsive to environmental changes. Think of these nodes like invisible magnetic lanes that can bend, stretch, and break. If a player parks a car on a sidewalk, the navigation grid does not just break. It dynamically warps around the vehicle, creating a new temporary path for every pedestrian in the area. This matters because it completely eliminates the immersion-breaking sight of NPCs walking endlessly into the side of a parked truck. When you block a path, the crowd reacts naturally, stepping into the street or squeezing through tight gaps just like real commuters would. This brings us to the atmospheric layers of the map, specifically volumetric air density and cloud shadows. Most games render clouds as a flat, two-dimensional texture map pasted onto the sky dome. Here, the atmosphere is divided into distinct altitude zones, each with its own density, moisture levels, and wind vectors. Think of it like a multi-layered cake made of light and mist. As sunlight passes through these three-dimensional cloud volumes, it casts highly accurate, moving shadows onto the landscape below. But we will see in a moment how these atmospheric layers actually dictate the maximum altitude your aircraft can reach before engines stall. For the player on the ground, this means that as you drive from a humid coastal swamp up into a dry, elevated commercial district, the quality of light changes realistically. The air feels heavier in the lowlands, and the headlights of oncoming cars scatter differently through the dense, moist air. To make this massive world feel grounded, the developers had to solve the problem of architectural decay and procedural wear. In older titles, buildings looked pristine forever or used static, pre-baked textures to simulate dirt. The map now utilizes a real-time weathering shader that runs continuously in the background, Think of this like an invisible digital painter who slowly adds coats of grime, rust, and water stains to the corners of buildings based on local weather patterns. If a building is located near the ocean, the engine automatically increases the rate of rust on metal railings and salt crust on windows. This matters because it creates a world that looks lived in and historically accurate. You can actually tell how old a neighborhood is simply by looking at the water stains on the concrete joints, giving you a subconscious sense of place and history without a single line of dialogue. Finally, we must examine subsurface audio occlusion, which is how the map handles sound propagation. In basic game engines, sound simply plays at a specific volume based on your distance from the source. This engine calculates how sound waves bounce off physical geometry and pass through different materials. Think of this like holding a thick down pillow over a speaker. If a car is playing loud music inside a concrete parking garage, you will not just hear a quieter version of the song from outside. You will only hear the low-frequency bass notes vibrating through the concrete walls. This matters because it completely transforms how you navigate the world using your ears. You can hear a police siren echoing around a street corner before you can see the flashing lights, allowing you to make tactical driving decisions purely based on realistic acoustic feedback. When we look at all these hidden systems together, we see a map that is not just a static backdrop, but a highly complex, self-sustaining simulation. Every physical asset, atmospheric layer, and audio wave is constantly communicating with the game engine to create a seamless, highly immersive reality. It is a massive technical achievement that redefines what we can expect from interactive entertainment. Oh yeah, I also made some other cool breakdowns for you to check out, so don't forget to watch those later, okay?